Have you ever wondered how to make lunging something that's interesting and truly beneficial for your horse, not just something to tire them out a bit? Well, in this video, we're going to explain and demonstrate how you can include changes of direction on the move without you having to stop and faff about with your lunge line or your other tack. But bear with me, because this was our first ever attempt at doing some live coaching in this kind of format, so the first couple of minutes are a bit fumbly. But actually, there's a really valuable lesson in this for all of us. You see, the secret to learning anything is you have to be willing to start out being a bit rubbish. And the only way to get better is to just do it, fumbles and all. So if you want a bit of a laugh, just watch on. But if you want to skip straight to the teachy bit, it starts at about 3 minutes 20. Good evening and hello everybody. This is Coaching Over Kombucha with us, Derek Clark and Joe Clark. And we, for those of you who don't know us, we are the founders of Holistic Equitation. We are also the people who introduced Philip Carl, the French classical master, and his School of Légèreté to the UK. And most recently, we are the creators of the Schooling Made Simple online training and coaching program, which shows you and helps you to make faster, more consistent progress with your horse, but most importantly, have a happier horse at the same time. So we are delighted to see quite a few people coming in already. I'm just catching up with the technology. I have to say, we're going to kind of beg your indulgence, forgiveness, patience, flexibility, etc. in advance this evening. It's the first time that we've tried to do this kind of live coaching setup. And one of the things we've had to do is just get some new technology on board. So we're using something called StreamYard for the first time today. It's brand new to us, seems to work fantastically well. It's a bit like, you know, when you get a new horse, you go shopping, you look for the kind of horse that you think is going to be fun and suit you perfectly. And it all looks great in the paddock and you decide to buy him or her. And the transporter comes along, brings the horse to you, and you think life's going to be fantastic. And then, of course, the real horse comes out of the wagon, and that is pretty much where the fun starts, isn't it? So, as I say, just to kind of beg your forgiveness and patience and flexibility, and hope you've brought a sense of humor with you this evening, as well as your glass of whatever it may be. We've got our kombucha here, as promised. Whatever you've brought with you is absolutely perfect. So the first question for you actually is, what question or topic would you like some help with? We are kind of aiming to keep this short and sweet this evening, but the first thing is, of course, we need to know who'd like some help and what would you like some help with. So again, if I could ask you to just type something in the comments. Joe is actually going to, as always, kind of be the technical mega brain behind everything.
No pressure there.
No pressure at all. No, keeping track of everything, making sure that we get things working. I tell you what, I think we will pick the old lunging change of direction one there. So if you just bear with us for 2 seconds here, while we wait for Terry to join, let's talk a little bit about lunging in kind of broad brush strokes, first of all. I guess there are kind of two approaches to lunging that we typically see. One is the kind of much more kind of conventional approach, I guess we could call it, which really comes from a kind of military background. And the idea there is that the horse is lunged on a very specific circle, and the handler, the rider, the trainer, whatever we want to call that person, would be standing in a fixed spot in the school. And usually what's taught is that you take one heel of one of your boots and kind of fix it in the sand. And so as the horse is going around you, you rotate around that fixed spot. And the idea being that you keep your heel exactly where it is. And so you're defining a fixed spot in the sand, and that defines, if you keep the rope that you're using a consistent length, then that defines a fixed circle that your horse is actually going to move around. Now, yeah, there are some advantages to that. The idea being that if you more or less kind of define the circle that your horse is supposed to be moving on by keeping your position the same, keeping the length of the rope the same, the idea is that you're going to cause your horse to describe an exact circle. And the idea there is that your horse is then going to adjust what he does with his body, or she for that matter, so that the way that the limbs move and the way that the spine bends, and of course it oscillates to both sides, but the idea being that the shape of the circle will affect the way that the horse moves. Now, I say, in theory, yeah, there's a certain amount of truth in that. So kind of so far, so good. The issue, though, is that if there are strong contractions in the muscles, and I think probably most people realize that horses are generally asymmetrical. We describe it as they'd be bent naturally more to one side than the other. And really what that's coming from is contractions in muscles, except in very, very, very extreme cases where you may get bone deformities causing that sort of asymmetry. The majority of the time, it's actually just differences in muscle tension. So if your horse is going around on a circle and the muscles on one side are tighter and the muscles on the other side are a bit looser, it has a lot of consequences for how the horse moves. Now, we don't have time this evening to go into that in massive detail particularly, but the issue is if you're physically defining the shape of the circle, then it can be pretty hard on the horse, because if the horse finds it difficult or almost impossible sometimes to be able to let go of tight muscles just, like that instantly, then something has to give. And what tends to give is the soft tissues around the joints and sometimes the cartilages on the joints and so on. So you get wear and tear basically on the horse. Now, the way that we approach lunging is the old French way. And there's been a development progressively over many, many years to make the methods and the approach to training gentler and easier on horses. So many, many years ago, hundreds of years ago, the way that horses were trained in the early days was literally to lunge them around a fixed post. So there's one of the classical pillars that you might see in classical schools, literally kind of fixed into the ground, and a piece of rope was used that could be actually passed around the pillar and then would run to the cavesson. But that's gone out of fashion basically as the years have gone by and been replaced by work in hand. And the idea of the work in hand is that the person actually becomes a replacement for that pillar, but a replacement with a brain and the ability to be flexible. So if a horse is finding one particular direction, for example, or one particular activity extremely difficult because of these physical challenges, and hesitate to use the word limitations, but challenges is probably a better description. Basically, if the person can move around and move their hands, give with their hands, take with their hands, and so on, even working on the ground with the horse, then it's much more forgiving. And so we can train the horse more gently, more progressively, and get to the point where the horse becomes more flexible and therefore more able to navigate the circle more easily. But we can get there in a much kind of gentler and kinder way, a more horse-friendly way, you could say. So this is where really the idea of direction changes becomes a bit of a conversation topic, because if you were lunging in the kind of more traditional fashion, the conventional fashion, the horse is only going around a fixed circle, and you would have to bring the horse to a halt and then work your way towards the horse, change the direction, and then you set the horse off in the opposite direction. So, so much so good for that. But when you are lunging the horse in a more flexible fashion, not only do we work on circles, but we actually spend a lot of time working on straight lines as well. And you can also describe figures such as loops, bringing the horse towards you, moving the horse away from you, walk, trot, canter, everything is possible. So to be able to change direction, actually the key to it, to be able to change direction on the move, which is one of the features of that way of lunging, actually it's really about developing shoulder control. Now, funny enough, this is something that we do go into in quite a bit of detail inside the Schooling Made Simple program. We've got a whole bunch of videos and examples and sort of step-by-step process in there. But let me give you the headlines on that this evening. The key thing is, first of all, you have to develop shoulder control. So that means the ability to move your horse's shoulders away from you when you're working on the lunge. And the easiest way to do that actually in the beginning is just to make transitions between circles and straight lines. Holding a stick, if I use my arm just to illustrate that, holding a stick sort of pointing towards the horse's shoulder is a good way to be able to give the horse a bit more of a clear signal. So if you make a transition yourself from walking on a circle to walking on a straight line, then you need to be able to indicate to your horse that you want the horse to preserve that distance, essentially, between the two of you. The next step would be making the circle a bit bigger, so just enlarging the circle as you go around. Once you can do that, then an easy way to introduce the idea of changing the direction actually would be to lunge the horse towards a wall or towards the edge of your arena. In fact, I can just illustrate this. If we think of this big square here as being the outside of an arena, or the area of arena, sort of looking down from above, the idea that I mentioned first of all of working on circles, if I were to work the horse on a circle here, so here's me standing in the center, and I've got the horse going around on the circle on this direction, the simplest way to start gaining control of the shoulders would be to turn the circle into a straight line. Start moving in this direction. And the key moment really is this point just sort of in here where the circle itself turns into the straight line. Okay, so what I need to be able to accomplish there at that point, what I need to be able to accomplish there, if I'm working the horse on the circle, there's a point here where I need to have an influence in that direction towards the horse's shoulder, and then that gives him the signal that we want to move in this direction instead of continuing around. Now, once that's working, you can then start to make use of it to change direction. Okay, so again, if we imagine looking down vertically at the arena here, let's assume that we're working on a slightly bigger circle, and I'm going to be standing somewhere approximately there. So the horse is moving around me on the lunge, and what I'm going to do is, as the horse is moving towards the wall here, I'm actually going to move myself towards the wall as well. So the horse is going to be traveling essentially in this direction. As he approaches the wall, I'm going to start stepping back this way, and the horse then is going to be turning towards me. And that gives me the opportunity to switch my whip. So as the horse was going around, my whip would be following the horse this way, and I could possibly point the whip towards the horse's shoulder. If I pop the horse just along the wall now, let's put a couple of ears up front, little curly tail at the back so we know which end is which, and here are the four hooves. And so now I'll swap color. I'll just go to the red. So I'm going to be standing over here somewhere. What I'm going to do is move my whip to the other side of the horse. And then as I step backwards, I'm going to be influencing the horse's left shoulder in this case, and sending the horse out away from the wall. Now, once I've got that working in a basic fashion, well, then what I can do is the horse is moving away from the wall. I just guide him onto a new circle in the opposite direction. And if I then move away from the wall a little bit, then I've got the opportunity to create a circle going in that direction as well. I'll arrange the circle so that she's almost going straight into the wall. I swap my whip and lunge line, and as she gets close, I'll step back. The wall makes sure that she at least turns, and then I can use my whip to make sure that she goes around me and onto a new circle. It's been a bit of a journey with the technology this evening, I have to say. So thanks for your flexibility and understanding on that one. But if you're still there, Terry, has that answered any of the question that you had, or is there something There we go. Okay, thank you. That was great. Okay, wonderful. So let me just get the camera back working. There we go. Okay, so thanks for your understanding on that one. Hopefully that's been useful not only for Terry, but also giving you some ideas about some additional things that you could introduce to working with your own horse. So that is going to be it pretty much for us this evening. Thanks very much for joining in. We are going to figure out how to do this in a slightly more kind of slick and efficient fashion.
So the person we're coaching can actually join in.
So we'll actually get back on screen. I think probably what we'll need to do is do a little preparation and maybe get your questions in advance and be able to get you on screen with us a little bit more easily. So just let you know, we will come back and try this exercise again, and if you'd like to join us on screen and get a bit more of a kind of conversation going, a bit more of an in-depth answer perhaps to any questions that you have, we'll see you then. Alrighty, thanks very much for joining us, folks, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.